But thanks for asking.
Lock my chair down. Huh? Somebody lock my chair down because I can't fall back. Oh,
No, sir.
I'm trying to get up on.
It's amazing how you're
I'm doing well. I'm learning from you.
No, you're not. No, I can't take credit for all that.
No, you're really not.
He's got his seatbelt on. He can't fall in.
Get one foot down with the other, but not both.
How are you? Want to watch football game tonight?
What time does the debate come on?
8 o'clock.
Huh? What time does the debate come on?
Governor's at 7.
Huh?
Governor's at 7.
Oh, it is? Okay.
McQuarrie and Dalton.
Who's going to be in?
Dalton, McQuarrie didn't show up. All right, let's rock and roll.
You can turn it on first.
Man, still don't know what's video.
Yeah, I gotta find it. No. Oh, come on.
22 years. Remember that.
Burns too much battery when you use that thing.
Which one?
That when you change it.
Oh, there it is.
That one's on.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I'll just download it. All right, you ready? Yeah, guys, ready?
I like it.
Ready?
Yeah. You look good on paper. I'm good. Yeah.
You ready? Good evening. Take this opportunity to welcome you to the Burlington City Council October 16, 2012 meeting. Tonight we'll call it to order. This time we would hope that you would return and also ask you to silence all electronic devices at this time. Call on Councilmember Steve Ross for tonight's invocation.
Let's bow our heads. Lord, we ask for your blessings and guidance as this council deals with the work of our citizens. Help us to be good listeners and fair in all the decisions that come before this council. We are thankful for our Constitution and the privilege it grants each of us to live in a free system of democracy. We also give you thanks for the many hardworking and dedicated city employees. Keep them safe as they move about our city, doing their work and keeping us safe and making Burlington a better place to live, work, and raise our families. In your mighty name we pray. Amen.
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 This time we'd recognize City Clerk Renee Ward for Code of Ethics. Welcome, Ms. Ward.
It is my responsibility to remind you of your duty to avoid conflicts of interest in matters that are before us. At this time, I ask if there are any potential conflicts concerning tonight's agenda items.
None. Before we get into our agenda, we have some Scouts here tonight from Troop 39, Andrew, Sam, and Alexander. I will let you stand and introduce yourselves, because I'm surely not going to embarrass myself to pronounce the last name, so that's the easiest thing for me to do. So please stand and recognize yourself and also your family members.
I am Andrew Kaczynski. I am from Troop 39. My dad's name is Jeffrey Kaczynski. My mom is Tracy, and I have a brother and sister.
Thank you.
My name is Sam Geiger from Troop 39. I'm in 8th grade at Western Middle School. I have 3 little brothers, and my dad is Tim Geiger.
Good.
I'm Alexander Rankin. I have a brother and a sister. I'm in 7th grade Western Middle School, and my dad, Matthew Rankin, and my mom, Dolores Rankin.
Great. Thank you very much and welcome.
Troop 39, and we're here working on their communications and their citizenship in the community merit badges.
Thank you so much for being here. We also have an Eagle Scout on council as well. Councilmember Steve Ross, if you'd like to say a few words.
Well, I was just going to say we look forward to each of you 3 returning here one day when the council recognizes the Eagle Scouts. So we'll be looking for, and I know one of you from church, so we'll be looking for all 3 of you back here for your Eagle presentation in the future.
Sorry, the rest of us didn't qualify, so apologize.
I wonder.
I wonder. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. A, October 1st, 2012, City Council work session. B, October 2, 2012, City Council meeting.
Move we approve those minutes.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Adoption of the agenda.
Move for the adoption of the agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda. These items are typically non-controversial. If anyone has any questions about the following items, please let us know. Item 1A, to approve the updated municipal records retention and disposition schedule. The official copy of the schedule will remain on file with the city clerk. 2, appoint John H. Oakes to the Board of Alcoholic Beverage Control for a 3-year term. C, Budget Amendment 2013-15, CDBD, reallocation of funds. That's spelled out in your agenda. Budget Amendment 2013-16, fire and donations, spelled out in your agenda. E, Budget Amendment 2013-17, RICO appropriations, is spelled out in your agenda. F, Budget Amendment 2013-18, Burlington housing donation, is spelled out in the agenda. G, Budget Amendment 2013-19, Burlington housing donation.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Next item on the agenda is new business. 2, City Council will consider an agreement between the City of Burlington and Golden Leaf Foundation to receive funds up to $695,000 to construct water and wastewater infrastructure to serve industrial properties located on White's Kennel Road. This time, I would recognize Lanny Rue. Mr. Rue, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. In 2009, 125-acre site abutting White's Kennel Road and Anthony Road received certified status with the North Carolina Department of Commerce. A significant drawback to the site was the fact that it did not have water and sewer service to serve the site. Recently, Sheets evaluated a 43-acre industrial site partially within this certified site to locate their food manufacturing and distribution facility. The site is anticipated to construct a $32 million site and provide 253 new jobs to Alamance County. Through the Chamber, an economic catalyst grant application was submitted to Golden Leaf Foundation. And up here you see the charter for Golden Leaf. Is to supply public water and sewer infrastructure to the Sheets site. The City of Burlington is named as grantee for these funds. The projects, which is an extension of water and extension of sewer to the site, is approved for up to $695,000 award to extend these utilities. This is a reimbursable grant based on the actual cost of the construction. The project costs anticipated are for Phase 1 water line, 2,700 linear foot of 12-inch water line, $169,000, 3,800 linear foot of sanitary sewer outfall, and preliminary estimate is $480,000. In addition to the sheet site, these utilities also have potential to serve an additional 100 acres of industrial property for sewer and an additional 200 acres by the water line. Let me pull up the site for you so we can get an idea of the actual layout. Zoom in a little more. This is actually White's Kennel Road. This is Anthony Road. The extension of the water line is from Anthony Road to this actual eastern portion of the site. That's Phase 1 water line. The red line represents the sewer outfall to serve the site. As expressed in the grant application, the city would need to extend the water line further along White's Kennel to Maple Avenue. This would be considered Phase 2 construction. This would also serve an additional 116 acres of combined commercial and residential property at an estimated cost of $163,000. In order to be eligible for this funding, the city would need to consider approval and execution of the Golden Leaf grant grantee acknowledgement and agreement with Golden Leaf tonight. And I'm available for any questions you might have regarding these projects.
This is also built for the future as well?
Correct.
I think this, did you just say this completes a loop?
It does, from Anthony Road to Maple or Highway 49.
It's good use of infrastructure.
Any other comments, questions for Mr. Rue?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the agreement with Golden Leaf.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. 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 Opposed? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is a public hearing. 3, a public hearing has been scheduled to consider an ordinance annexing Lake McIntosh and adjacent city-owned property into the corporate limits of the city of Burlington. This time I'd recognize Mr. Harkrader. Welcome, Mr. Harkrader.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Good evening. For several years, the Council has discussed off and on the possible annexation of Lake McIntosh, and this was last discussed at your work session on September 17th. And at that time, you directed staff to go forward and do the paperwork and advertisement and provide for a public hearing to go forward with the annexation of the lake. The North Carolina General Statutes allow the annexation of contiguous city-owned property, and they allow that allow that at 168.31. That's the citation of the statute that allows and provides for the annexation of city-owned property. And we've talked about the reasons for annexing the lake, and I think one of the primary reasons certainly is with the future of water quality regulations. I think it's the opinion of staff that it's going to be important that the lake actually be within the city and as such be recognized as an urban reservoir. This is not some lake that's 10 miles out from the city and whatever, but it's directly contiguous with our current city boundaries. Andrew, come up here. With me tonight, Mr. Mayor, is Andrew Shore, who's our GIS services manager. And I've asked him to prepare sort of an interactive map in anticipation of the fact there might be questions here. And go through, Andrew, and if you would just bear with me a second, Mr. Mayor, we want to show you, we've got the ability here, if there are questions, this is the general context of the lake. I think all of you know that. You've got maps at your place, and we've reviewed these maps with you before, but just zero in on an area and just...
The green line here is the representation of our line of agreement with the city of Greensboro, and the red hatch, I think on your paper maps there is yellow. The red hatched line you see here is the extent of the annexation.
Let me interrupt you a minute, Andrew, and I apologize. On our map, the red line represents the Guilford County line agreement, or the agreement with Guilford County? Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
So an area, some example of our water treatment plant, Lake McIntosh, the property that surrounds it.
So how that's publicly owned?
All this is publicly owned. And one thing I want, there's been I've had a few calls and from citizens about this annexation. All of this is city-owned property. That's all that is proposed to be annexed here. And you have in your packet or on your iPad actually the ordinance and actual legal description of the property. I believe that begins on page 66 of your materials. And it's an extensive boundary, I guess to say the least. The actual official kind of boundary and documents that if you approve this that'll be submitted and recorded are these. These are just Mylars of the lake boundary, and they would be recorded like any other annexation if you decide to go forward with it. But in terms of trying to portray this just for you and for the public and for people to understand, we've got this map here, and we can manipulate this map or do anything that you would like if there are any questions about specific properties. And once again, we do have the ability to go down to the parcel level if that's what, if you have any questions about adjacent property. But this property is all city-owned property. It is the lake. It includes the treatment plant. It includes the McIntosh Park. And once again, it is just city-owned property. There are no other properties that are included in this annexation. And let's see here. For the record, I think that if you do approve this, it would add about 3.12 square miles to the city, approximately. That's just a tad under 2,000 acres. And I think that's pretty much it, Mr. Mayor, unless there's questions. This is a public hearing, and we're here to try to answer any questions that you or others may have.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Harkrader. Thank you, Mr. Shore. Anyone on this side that would like to speak on this subject? Anyone on this side that would like to speak?
Will we close the public hearing?
No. Mayor, you may have talked with the same individual I did, but I had what I would consider an informal request to continue the hearing because this individual couldn't make it to the meeting. And I mean, I know they understand that it's not being, there's not any private property, it's all public property. But this individual was concerned about, the impact and having an opportunity to speak. Did you happen to talk to somebody?
I did.
And I'm not opposed to continuing a public hearing. I just, it really was not a formal request, and I explained this individual it'd be entirely up to this body whether or not to continue the hearing. Again, like I said, I'm not opposed to it, but I don't know. I mean, it'd be whatever the pleasure of the council is, but I thought for the record I would convey that. And I don't know, what was your communication? Was it?
The communication was he wanted to, or he asked for a continuation, and it was my understanding from his request or his talking points to me was simply that the people around the lake, property owners, did not have any idea that this meeting was taking place to annex this property. Now, with that being said, he was expecting to see some signs posted along this route here to inform the community about that. In my conversation with Mr. Harkrader, which I relayed back to him this afternoon, that we only post the signs on rezoning request. not annexations, that what we did in the past with annexations, that we sent out certified letters. In this case, we are the property owners, so therefore there was no letters to be sent to anyone. So I understand that. I did have some other questions that he asked me about, and I've asked Bob the same questions, but I would repeat it just for the record. Any area here in the yellow on this map, and I'm sorry, I'll get back to you in a second. I just want to make sure we get this in the record as well. Any yellow here that touches another piece of property is potentially, could be a voluntary annexation. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, if you approve this annexation of city-owned property, it absolutely would provide the opportunity for adjacent contiguous property owners to petition the city for voluntary annexation.
Sure.
As a contiguous annexation. But now, I also want to say for the record, I have no notice or anything else of anybody wanting to do it at this point, or really haven't thought about that much at this point, because there are a lot of service considerations and other things that I believe would have to happen that this council would need to discuss before you'd even want to begin to think about that. But if you're contiguous to our boundaries, yes, you could certainly come in.
Petition to come in.
Petition to come in.
But it's totally at your option.
But it would be at the option of the adjoining property owner. I don't view this.
Beyond that, it has no other impact on anybody.
Well, I don't view this as directly impacting any adjoining property owners. Certainly, I think it indirectly impacts them in that the city would be technically next to them where now it's not. But as far as the practical effect to them and their property and the way they use it and whatever, I don't know that there's any real effect on the
right. And give the quick overview of the question in reference to involuntary annexation with the new laws for the council, please.
Well, pretty much with the new statute, there was legislation approved in 2011, and then there was a court case brought pursuant to that, and then the legislation was again changed by the legislature in 2012, and it provides basically for I think what amounts to a 51% veto power of individuals that would, could petition for an election. And then, as I understand it, it would be, Mr. Bateman, if you could make sure I don't misspeak here, but as I understand it, it would be 51% of the people who actually vote in that election that would carry the question of whether the property would be annexed. And so by way of example, I guess, if you annexed an area pursuant to the statute and went through the procedures and adopted your ordinance and did that, then that election would be held, and let's say there were 100 people that lived in that in that area, and of those 100 people, 10 voted, and 6 said they didn't want the annexation, then that's what would occur. It would be those 10 people that would count. Is that
all right? And I guess going back to Councilman Ward's question or comment, if we did postpone it tonight or delayed it or whatever, you're still not going to send any certified letters out to any property owners, especially the way this particular map looks. I mean, that'd be overwhelming.
Well, first of all, staff would do whatever the council directs, but
you don't have to.
The statute specifically in what's required, that is a public hearing with duly held notice and publication, and that has been done, and that's the standard. The reason that we use rezoning signs is that when we do rezonings, that is in the statute, that's something that we do, and that had been a long-standing policy of ours anyway, even before that law was changed.
Right, and the other thing that we did, though, in the other annexation we got through with in 2011, we sent the letters because it was
a requirement of the statute, right, to those, because we were undertaking an action that actually affected others' properties. This does not affect any others' properties directly, in that we are the sole property owner in this annexation, and once again, it certainly indirectly, I think, affects other property owners, but
Well, we're back, I'm sorry, Councilman Ross.
We've actually been talking about this for
mercy.
years. This is not new or new information. This is something we've been talking about for years. All we're trying to do is bring our own property into the city, and this is to protect our resource.
Well, the overwhelming majority of people that have talked to me feel that we've been good stewards of the lake, good stewards of our water resources, and I think certainly if you ask most citizens in the city of Burlington, they value our utility, our public utility, and the fact that you don't have to worry about having water. You don't, that's not a concern for us, and through the work that we've done in the past, we've been able to create a very stable price structure and everything. So I think we've been good stewards of that resource, and I think, once again, certainly my opinion is that this would help ensure that we're able to continue to be good stewards.
Well, I mean, our water system is our prized possession. I mean, it's something that we have, it's something to be proud of. And, this is...
I guess the question would, in my mind, would be, and it goes back to the gentleman that called both of us, if it's in the city, is that an advantage in reference to our concerns about what's happened in Bumpkin County and Asheville, with politics being involved in the water grab there?
Well, in looking at other contexts similar to this, and I guess the one that comes to my mind, I guess I'm most familiar with is Greensboro. Their urban reservoirs zones have all been annexed into the city, and this is right adjacent to a major interstate corridor in the southeast. It's an urban reservoir, and I just think, and it's hard to predict the way that regulations are going to change here in the future, but I think they're going to change. And I just think the city's in a better position.
Having it within the city.
Well, I mean, it is yours, there's no question about that. But I just think you're in a better position if the city, same city regulations, everything else that apply to your citizens apply to this lake that is directly adjacent to your present corporate land. And that's just an opinion, and others may feel differently, and some of you may feel differently, and that's okay. But I think in the future it's going to be important that lake be considered.
Mr. Mayor, let me just address that. First thing is, I think most people in this town would be absolutely amazed to find out that it's not already part of your city. Most of them assume that you already have your city lake, your major water resource already as a part of your city. This is different from the annexations we've had in the past because the city taxpayers are the very people that are being annexed into the city, not individuals. And as a practical matter, we are charged with the stewardship for not just the water users in the city of Burlington, but this is a regional water supply, and we've worked very hard over the last 15 years to make sure that we've been able to expand the distribution system. So I think we have a very big responsibility here. We also have to keep in mind a couple of things that are pretty important and that are different about Alamance County, and that is that we do not have countywide zoning in this county. We are responsible for, the city alone is responsible for zoning in our ETJ as well as in our corporate limits. And I think it's very important that we try to control to the extent possible by way of zoning this use of our property, use of the lake. Even more so because we don't have countywide zoning. I see no reason to put this off. We have been talking about this for I know at least the last 6 or 7 years, and I don't think anything's to be gained by putting it off. It's a matter that we've talked about. This board has talked about at our retreat earlier, and the last 2 years, I know. So,
well, in all fairness to Mr. Ward, he brought it up, so I'm back to you after. I wanted to make sure we got some things into the record, regardless of which way we go. So,
well, I think it's important that you get those into the record. The one concern that I have, and and I have a stake in this lake too. I worked for a number of years on it myself, and there's one thing that I think is no small feature of it is we want to have good neighbors. In other words, if there's people out there have questions, have concerns, if we continue the hearing and give an opportunity for people to come in, and the mayor stated, we're never having to pass, well, we own the property, and we won't be sending notices and that sort of thing, but if we, in effect, go that extra mile and allow that opportunity, I know we got a little time invested here, but I really don't see any harm in that. I think there's something to be said that if we can, address any questions that may have come up, I think this would be an opportunity to do it, and that was the one thought I had. But if the consensus of the council, the majority says no, let's move ahead, certainly, I live with whatever the majority rules. I just throw that out for consideration. So.
I personally don't disagree with that, to be honest with you.
Has this public hearing been properly noticed?
It's been properly advertised.
Advertised.
And if you continue it, David, it's not a matter of re-advertising. In other words, if you close the public hearing, then you got to re-advertise. But if you continue it, maybe some people will come in, so.
And I guess the point there, Councilman Ward, would be if we do continue it and the people do come in, it's a matter of information. I don't think there's any doubt that we agree that the lake needs to be within the city. What we're discussing is basically common courtesy to our neighbors.
Precisely.
Okay. Is there a deadline on this? Is there an emergency on this, or?
Mr. Mayor, it's entirely at the council's discretion as to how you handle this. I will say for the record, right now that the ordinance provides that the current ordinance that's scheduled tonight provides that it would be annexed and it'd be effective December 31st, 2012 at 11:59 p.m. So it would be effect that's
still going to be in effect regardless. Okay.
And I don't think there's any. Mr. Bateman, I don't know of any reason why this hearing couldn't be continued, to consider this.
Wait a second, David. You have a question? Yeah, please, and state your name and address.
Name's Steve Deaton, live on Whitsett Street in Burlington. Are our other lakes are they city property? And then as a taxpayer, I see no need why this shouldn't be city property as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. The wishes of the council. I'm sorry.
They are city. It is city owned. The other lakes are city owned property.
Right, but not within the city limits.
But they're not contiguous.
And my understanding is they do not meet the standards to be brought within the city.
Okay.
They're not. Is that correct, Mr. Bateman? Yes, and that's why they're not. They're not.
That answers your question, Mr. Deaton?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Mayor, there is a motion that has been seconded on the floor, so if you
No, not seconded. There was a motion, no second. Mr. Ward interrupted the second. So there's a motion on the floor to close the public hearing. Right.
Was there a second on that?
No.
I'll second that.
All right, motion is second to close the public hearing. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
That's 3-2? What happened?
No, we just closed the public hearing.
I understand. Yeah, what was the vote? Did it?
It was unanimous.
Unanimous. Okay,
To close the
fine.
public hearing.
Okay. Move we approve the ordinance to annex the Lake McIntosh into the city.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. That moves us to the public comment period. Do we have any?
Good evening, Mayor Wall and members of the City Council. Aaron Noble, 4499 Cornerstone Drive in Burlington. I'd like to take a few minutes to address the allegations and penalties leveled against me as a result of my involvement with the city's Wellness Council. Before doing so, allow me to correct some of the facts incorrectly reported in the Alamance News and Times News 2 weeks ago regarding the Wellness Council and the amount of money and or prizes unaccounted for. In the October 4th edition of the Alamance News appeared a story with the following headline: Councilman's complaints against city's human resources chief end in public discipline. This article stated our Wellness Council started in 2007. Actually, 2012 marks the Wellness Council's 21st anniversary. The city of Burlington was among the first business entities in Alamance County to realize the value of promoting wellness and fitness in the workplace and encouraging employees to become active participants in improving their physical health. We are proud of our achievements and the service we provide our fellow employees. In the October 4th, 2012 edition of the Times News appeared an article headlined, City HR Director Receives Rebuke. This story referenced findings published in the Auditor's Report of the Wellness Council of purchases from July 1st, 2007 to April 30th, 2008. In this report, only winners of prizes totaling $2,583 out of a total of $15,725 spent on prizes could be identified. While the reporter cited this report correctly, these findings were issued prior to an effort by City Manager Harold Owen to identify winners of outstanding prizes. Mr. Owen sent an email to employees September the 17th, 2012, along with a list of 41 prizes valued at $50 or more, asking them to contact City Clerk Renee Ward by September the 28th, 2012, if they won one of these prizes. Of the 41 prizes on this list, 25 winners were identified, leaving 16 prizes with a total of $3,900 unaccounted for. In reporting these results to the City Council during the October 2nd, 2012 meeting, Mr. Owen also said a significant number of individuals employed by the city during the period covered by the audit no longer work here. 94 full-time employees and over 100 part-time employees who were eligible to win prizes during this period are no longer employed by the city. It is conceivable that most, if not all, of the remaining prizes could have been won by former employees. Let me assure you, and let me assure the residents of the city of Burlington, there was no misconduct in the distribution of these prizes. Yes, we had no formal policy specifying how drawings were to be conducted. And yes, we kept no formal registry of prize winners. However, I publicly attest that every prize was awarded for the event it was purchased. We, and I say we because leadership of the Wellness Council is a shared responsibility, simply failed to keep a registry of prize winners. Proper purchasing procedures were followed, and no budgets were overspent. The Wellness Council purchased incentives and prizes and distributed them through drawings or used them to promote employee participation in wellness events. Emails were distributed announcing prize winners for each drawing. Unfortunately, no one kept a copy of these emails. We operated on the system of trust that, while administratively inappropriate, worked well. The Times News article also quoted a memorandum which stated that in my role as Wellness Council advisor, I, and I quote, focused on reviewing wellness events such as the annual health fair, Public Works Day, and holiday hike, and determining if and how prizes were awarded, and if there were a retained list of winners, unquote. I do review and advise the Wellness Council regarding events and activities, but I've never been solely responsible for determining if and how prizes are awarded or for retaining a list of winners. I am not the prize czar. I authorized the purchase of prizes for the health fair drawing in 2007 and the holiday hike and spring fitness programs in 2008. These events Mr. Ward has called into question. However, other Wellness Council members purchased prizes and incentives at other times during this period. The Wellness Council has received a policy developed by the auditors and city manager that establishes spending limits for prizes and specifies how future drawings shall be conducted. This policy will be followed. Other prize drawings are conducted within the city that could benefit from a similar policy. For example, prizes have been used to raise money and increase employee participation in our annual United Way campaign since the year 2000. Some were donated, others were purchased with city funds. Mr. Ward participated in these drawings, and in fact, he won a laptop computer in a United Way raffle in 2010. Ironically, he has not inquired if anyone was keeping a list of these prize winners. To ensure appropriate documentation is kept across the board, consideration should be given to developing a policy that governs all such drawings, similar to the one developed for the Wellness Council. I turn my attention now to the allegations for which Mr. Ward has implicated me, and only me. As I stated earlier, Wellness Council leadership is a shared responsibility. There are 2 staff advisors, of which I am one, and 2 co-chairs. This being said, how did Mr. Ward determine I was solely accountable for not keeping the list of prize winners? This leads to an even larger question. Why was I the only employee disciplined? In recent remarks made by Mr. Ward inquiring of the status of information requests he submitted to City Manager Harold Owen, Mr. Ward repeatedly said he was pursuing this matter, and I quote, in the interest of accountability to taxpayers and transparency in government. This was not totally true. Mr. Ward has been anything but transparent, as he has also pursued a personal vendetta against me, with his goal being the termination of my employment. It is worth noting Mr. Ward's inquiries of the Wellness Council focused on events that occurred in 2007 and 2008. The period he has specified warrants closer scrutiny. First, if Mr. Ward was concerned about Wellness Council record keeping, why did he not request information from prior years? What made 2007 and 2008 significant? Second, what, if any, is the connection of Mr. Ward's informants or informants to the city, to him, or to me? Could he, she, or they not done so while he was employed as city attorney? Third, why did it take 4 years for his informant or informants to bring this matter to his attention? Finally, with 4 employees in roles of leadership on the Wellness Council, how did I become the focus of this inquiry? It is clear Mr. Ward has used his advocacy on behalf of the taxpayers to disguise a personal vendetta. This is especially puzzling in that, in the end, no evidence of wrongdoing was found.
1 minute, Dr. Noble. 1 minute left.
Okay, thanks, sir. Section 168-168 of the North Carolina General Statutes prohibits me from divulging information that was substantiated by allegations against Mr. Ward. However, Mr. Ward could release this information. He should immediately make public the name or names of his informants. Should he do so, additional details could be disclosed that would validate my allegation against him. Given the public humiliation and disciplinary action I have received in this matter, I call on Mr. Ward to release this information in the interest of accountability, transparency, and truth. For someone who was once my mentor and a close friend, Mr. Ward's recent actions sadden me greatly. I truly regret the need to address him and this matter publicly. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Noble. Any other public comments, Ms. Ward?
Mr. Mayor, you know, really, let me just say for the record that I need to refute that. It's not a personal vendetta, and I just didn't single out 2 years, and Harold can verify. I asked, you know, for records of the Wellness Council, and I had, you know, had several inquiries as to, you know, about the prizes, and I felt like it was my duty as a member of the City Council to answer those questions, and I did. And I never, the inquiry was to find out answers to those questions. And I don't think at any time that I, you know, were saying you were responsible. I asked the general question, you know, about the prizes. And that's it, pure and simple. Mayor, if indeed we do, you know, he's made a request that we release certain records, I would ask that we have a hearing on this matter where all witnesses are sworn in, and you schedule for the next meeting, and I'll be prepared. And we can have a hearing on that, and we put everybody under oath, to get to the bottom of it. So,
Is that in a?
What?
well, he's made a request, under 168, 168, isn't that correct?
Obviously, I could not release the information under 168-168.
Okay, so, and maybe I'll defer to Mr. Bateman, how do you get to the bottom of this, short of a hearing without swearing witnesses in?
Well, there's no process for a hearing and swearing of witnesses on this issue. It still remains a personnel matter and is not subject to a public hearing. I'm not familiar with Dr. Noble's request about the documents that he is referring to, but there were several documents that we did not release. And he advised the press that we had not released several documents. I'm not prepared at this point in time to say what action would be required for the release of those documents.
Okay.
I'll be happy to research it and make that information available to the council.
Mayor, if you could, Mr. Bateman would report back to this body as to how we can make that. I would assume one method would be to bring a declaratory judgment action in the courts, to make that determination. So, but we probably need to research it in more detail, and you get back with the city council so you can answer this question.
The first thing is, what information are we talking about? I understand the statute. I understand, but what is it that he's asking to be released? I think he needs to put that in writing first, so that we, as a board, know what it is that he is referring to. Is that not proper?
Well, that would certainly move it along. In other words, if he'd be willing to put it in writing to request those documents, then Mr. Bateman can reflect on that. Then this body could decide how it would proceed, from that point.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand this so we can move on. First, if Dr. Noble wants to request that information be released, he puts that information in writing to Mr. Bateman. Mr. Bateman researches that information to see what the protocol would be. At that point in time, he makes a recommendation or makes a presentation to us about that. Then this body decides if we would like to proceed. Is that correct? Is that correct,
I
Mr. Bateman?
think that's correct. Yes.
Okay.
There's nothing for us to act on here tonight.
Absolutely not. I'm just making sure that we understand for the minutes that reflect what we're talking about.
I do understand.
All right.
Thank you.
So any other comments, questions? Mr. Boney.
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to preempt any further discussion of the council, but I would like to address this issue. I believe that the documents to which Mr. Noble may refer are two documents that were withheld in a public records request that this newspaper made to the city council. It's to the city government through the city manager. We asked for a lot of correspondence among the council members and about the wellness inquiries. The city ultimately provided a great deal of information, but included in that information was a memorandum from Mr. Bateman in which he indicated it was his legal opinion, and he was recommending that they withhold two important memoranda that had been written by Mr. Ward. One was dated July the 29th, the other was August the 9th. We followed up with a subsequent letter to Mr. Bateman with a little more chapter and verse of what we felt were some very good court cases in North Carolina precedent in the past several years that should allow for the release of those. We received the letter from Mr. Bateman, however, on Friday, which indicated having reviewed our sort of appeal, he still found that it was within the city's prerogative to keep those closed, and that he would not consider even redacted versions of the memos. But what I come to talk about tonight, Mr. Mayor, based on the description Mr. Noble gave, and even which I've already had, as I understand it, the section of law that Mr. Bateman referred to in withholding the information, and that Mr. Noble referred to tonight in saying he could not release the information, is 160A-168, privacy of employee personnel records, specifically with respect to municipal employees. However, I believe, I would ask Mr. Bateman to confirm for you, that a section of that statute, specifically C6, indicates that an employee may sign a written release to be placed with his personnel file that permits the person with custody of the file to provide either in person, by telephone, or by mail information specified in the release to prospective employers, educational institutions, and we qualify for the third category, or other persons specified in the release. So it seems to me, Mr. Mayor, that the legal status, though I'm not a lawyer, is that Mr. Noble has the legal ability to sign a release to allow these two memos that Mr. Ward wrote that had been placed in his personnel file, and without any consideration, frankly, or permission of the council, he alone has the ability to sign that release. We would ask him to do so based on his statement tonight. But as I understand it, he has, the council may also take action or initiate action perhaps, but he has the authority to sign a waiver to have information that has been placed in his personnel file released.
Mr. Boney, this is, the fact is we have received no such request in writing from Dr. Noble. So we're talking a moot point right now.
I understand that, but am I not correct that if he should write such a release?
We will still have to review the documentation. It may need to be redacted.
I would just say, Mr. Mayor, I don't find that provision within the statute, but at this point, that would certainly be better than nothing. But it seems to me the concern that I detect, I infer, in some of Mr. Noble's comments, are that, and certainly the scuttlebutt around City Hall that has reached the ears of our newspaper, is a concern that Mr. Ward's interest in this, we do not characterize it as he did, but that some of his interest may be spurred by the fact that a family member was working for Mr. Noble or his department at the time of these alleged shortcomings / improprieties, however y'all want to characterize them. My great concern is that some of these allegations are taking place all behind closed doors when you met in closed session twice on this matter, and in these memos that have been submitted that are being withheld that may or may not reveal some information that we believe should be revealed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Boney. I'll tell you what let's do. Let's go back to what we just explained earlier. If Dr. Noble wants to make that, release that information, then he can do so in writing, and then at that time, Mr. Bateman can have conversation and represent this council, and then we can move forward. The dialogue between Alamance News and Mr. Bateman can take place, and we'll move forward on that. Dr. Noble.
Well, I just make one point of clarification. I've not seen any documentation, the two memos that Mr. Boney's referenced, but I do know that this information came to Mr. Ward from someone.
Okay.
That's the point I'm making. I'm asking Mr. Ward to make his sources of that information known. I'm not referencing any memorandum.
Right.
Haven't been part of two, haven't seen it. But Mr. Ward got this information from somebody.
Okay, I got you.
And what I'm asking for is him to publicly make those names known.
Okay.
That's all.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Noble. All right. We move on to city council comments. Any comments from council?
No.
All right, several here. Bear with me. October 18th is the last day to submit public comments regarding the draft downtown parking plan. There will be a public input session at 6:30 on October 18th in the council chambers with the parking consultant from Carl Walker Incorporated. Sunday afternoon, congratulations, Chief Smith, outstanding performance for your guys. It was well attended, a lot of kids there. Congratulations. Halloween in the park, the 27th, fireworks at 8 o'clock. downtown it gets in me every time, I apologize, is on the 26th. Chief Williams, congratulations on Eva Barker Park. Your guys did a great job. Staff Sergeant Rasco and several other officers were there on community policing. Beverly Hills, they have something to be proud of. And I think the word that was echoed throughout that event that day was basically, we have something to be proud of, let's take care of it. So congratulations there. Health fair today was outstanding, well attended. Trip 39, thank you for being here tonight. Great job. Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Thank you.